Hello, FedPhoenix fam. So, today I want to make a video about a topic that could be applied to prison, but in inmate life and that kind of thing. But also, because that's kind of the theme of my YouTube channel, but also just very general. And I think it's a statement that needs to be made, in the current times. It really is disheartening to me when I see people that are marginalized, that are disenfranchised, particularly when it comes to circumstances they can't control, but even to some degree with circumstances they can. So recently in my local community, right, there are these homeless camps, right, where people live. Now, mind you, to understand this, you have to understand that a large percentage, the majority of this population, are people that are mentally ill, right? And some of them do get Social Security checks for that. I think a lot of the homeless community that are mentally ill do not. And it's largely because it's such a rigorous process to get it, and the things that, you have to be a person with a certain level of documentation and ongoing care to get this benefit, right? And most of them don't have that. So, and they certainly do not have anyone. And for a lot of people, it's a grueling process that takes years and years, and you have to really stay on top of it. And they do not have people around them to assist them with this. And many of them just simply don't have the presence of mind to do it for themselves. So, and being homeless is not cheap. If you're a homeless person and you want to have access to, certain amenities, certain things, a cell phone, if you have an animal you're taking care of, which is common in my area, a lot of these people have dogs, different things. When you have money, you're going to go through that money relatively quickly. Because, like for me, if I want a bottle of water, I go in the fridge and I get it, right? And I buy bottled water by the case because I have somewhere to store it. Now, if I didn't have somewhere to store it, then every time I want a bottle of water, I got to go to a convenience store or grocery store and buy an individual or a couple of bottled waters, what I can carry. And I'm going to spend 3, 4, 5, maybe more times the price to have a bottle of water. And this adds up very quickly. So these people have these camps, and these encampments are usually on public property, sometimes private property that is abandoned, unused, Unfortunately, a lot of these camps are near roadways, bridges, streets, not far from people's residences. And so they become an eyesore. So the things that go on in them, a lot of these people, aside from being mentally ill, a portion of them, I would say at least half, have some type of substance abuse disorder. Now, is this self-medicating their mental illness? Perhaps. Is it just simply, creating a chemical vacation for themselves from their reality? Quite likely, or both. And we've all had times in our lives that are very difficult and very dark. And yes, many of us have chosen not to seek refuge chemically outside of our own minds during these times. But who am I? Who are you? Who is anyone to judge a person that's the choice that they make, right? So anyway, so the city goes, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, there are resources. To utilize resources, first off, a lot of these people have pets because they have nothing else in the world that brings them any comfort or stability or friendship. And usually it's a dog. You can't bring a dog to a homeless shelter. Homeless shelters tend to stay running at max or above max capacity. So even if you don't have a dog, you can't just go, today's the day I'm going to go to a shelter and sleep in a bed and get a shower. And not to mention, a lot of the shelters have bed bugs and other stuff. You're in a tight proximity with other individuals who have mental illness who may be, far less in check than your own. A lot of these people feel safer just being outside for a variety of reasons. And there's really no other option. So what the city does is, when enough people, on their high and mighty pedestal complain about the eyesore, complain about the trash that gets left behind or whatever, the loitering, the city goes in and bulldozes these people's encampments, destroys their property, and the little bit of nothing they had is gone. Whatever trauma they already had in mental illness is going to be exasperated by this experience. And there are actually locals who stand and clap for this kind of action. They're all for it. And the reality is, and I guess this is kind of the message, is a lot of individuals in our society, whether it be something, their skin color, their religious preference, whether it be their housing situation, maybe they're homeless, maybe they live in established income-based housing. Maybe they're not working, maybe they get disability, maybe they have an invisible disability. So people assume that they're just these scammers and freeloaders. You have people that are neurodivergent, or neurodiverse, whatever. I forget the actual term, and I apologize for that, that get marginalized. You have the elderly, there are a lot of people, of a certain age that don't really have anyone or anything, and they find themselves in difficult situations. And I think a lot of people kind of write it off as, oh, well, it can never be my grandmother, or my mother, but, I can't save everyone. And when you point out these situations, and a lot of times it's felons, oh, you've been to prison. Here's the thing, because so many things, particularly pertaining to bad choices we made in life, right, create a stigma to allow others to marginalize us, we tend to hide these things about ourselves, right? To protect ourselves from that stigma and that marginalization, whether it be you're a former drug addict, whether it be you're a former felon, whether it be, once upon a time you had a DUI, or maybe you're a person who made some horrible decisions in your personal life and that played out publicly in some way. The list goes on. But the reality is everyone has their shit, right? Everyone has their mistakes. Everyone has their flaws. And it's almost like in society, people look for, what is it about this person that I can find, right, that will give me a green light in my own head, my own principles, my own morals, to not give a shit, to marginalize them. And that mind state that, oh, it's your problem, not mine. Oh, well, I'm doing okay, so you can be okay too. I actually had a person tell me online the other day, well, I would be less, concerned about, other people who have less if they didn't have the same opportunity as me. That's an incredibly ignorant, at best, an insensitive thing to say, and just not realistic. Some people, financially, materialistically inherit generational wealth. Some people come from a 2-parent household where there was love and, and were guided in life by that. Some people come from nothing. Some people age out of the system. Some people come from generational poverty. Some people come from environments where all they've known for generations is abuse and neglect, abuse and neglect. This is what's normal. But yet they want to function in society and they don't know how. And when they seek out to do that, the inconvenience of having to show these people empathy, it's easier for folks to just write them off. You're trash, you're human garbage. You don't matter. It's not my job to save you. And the reality is it's really just kind of disgusting, quite frankly. And I think that we need to train ourselves and raise our children to think, when you see a person and their presence is inconvenient, their actions are uncomfortable or whatever, your knee-jerk reaction should not be, how can I write them off? How can I marginalize them? How can I make them irrelevant? So it's their fault, it's their problem, not for me. That shouldn't be the mind state. That shouldn't be the thought process. The thought process should always be, to seek out parts of yourself and other people so that you can empathize with them. Your first thought should be, people are people. And, just as much as if one of my bougie neighbors was knocking on my door on a hot day going, girl, I'm out for a walk. Do you have a water? I don't want to have to walk back to my house. I would happily give them a water. If I see a person on the side of the street who's dirty, may or may not be sober, instead of going, oh, well, they could go to a cooling center. They could go to a shelter. They could drink water out of a sink at a bathroom. My thought should be the same as it is for my neighbor. If I have some waters in the truck, why not pull over and give them a water? I'd do it for my neighbor, right? And the answer for a lot of people, if they were honest with themselves, is because that person on the corner, that person on the street in the gutter, you don't see them as your peer. You don't see them as relevant. You don't see them as a human being. And that's not okay. People are people are people are people. And sometimes people will say, oh, well, if you're such a bleeding heart, why don't you just take in all the homeless yourself? Why don't you just, first off, we're adults. Okay. So let's not pretend. And a lot of it is deflecting, is, they have decided to dismiss, to throw away a person as a human being. And so unless you have some great ability to come in and do, superhuman things to reestablish this as a person for them, then you're just part of the problem, quite frankly. You're the squeaky wheel making too much noise. Obviously, in our efforts to see other people as people, to practice empathy, to practice kindness and patience and tolerance, we obviously should never, do that in a way that puts us or those we're responsible for in harm's way, right? We should never do it to such a degree that we neglect ourselves or those that we are responsible for. So no, I cannot, and obviously will not go out and round up, half a dozen random people off the street and invite them into my home. I have a son to protect. For my own mental health, at the very least, I have developed a very peaceful, comfortable environment for me and my family. And I can't roll the dice on that just because. You know what I mean? And it's really a goofy thing to say. It's almost like, I know you are, but what am I, right? People, dehumanize other people for their own convenience, right? Their own selfishness, to justify their own lack of empathy or lack of morality. And then suggest something crazy to you with the implication that if you don't commit some ridiculous act, that you're just as bad as them. Surely you see my point now when I told you, if you have empathy for these people, you should take them all into your home and get yourself evicted and maybe get your child harmed in a way or whatever. Take those risks. That's asinine at best. I mean, it's really the equivalent of a child arguing with another child. And, a child says, well, it's not fair, or, I want the biggest, slice of pie, or, I was here first. And so no one else gets any pie if I don't get the biggest piece, and that's not okay. It's selfish, and it's really toxic. And a lot of the bad in our society is a direct result of the fact that we are culturally conditioned to be distracted and desensitized and divided. And knowing that, being a conscious adult who's aware of that, it is on us to be part of the good we want to see in the world, right? And so we have to really fight against that. We have to look for commonalities rather than seeking out division. We have to show empathy, not indifference. We have to consciously make an effort to do this. We have to find what aligns us, what brings us together, rather than focusing on divisive nonsense. And, I don't really know, I think it's the Hindus. They have a greeting, a saying. It's called namaste, right? And the literal translation is, the soul in me recognizes the soul in you. The mother in me sees the mother in you. The human in me sees the human in you. We are all the same. We are all micro parts of this huge, vast reality we live in. And we can choose to be empathetic. We can choose to lead with kindness. We can choose to lead with empathy. We can choose to encourage our children to do the same. I absolutely encourage my kids, from my adult child to my 8-year-old, to see other people as people, right? To show kindness and mercy where you can. And my belief is, if you want to be selfish, be kind and merciful, because I believe, and I think every monotheistic religion, most polytheistic religions have some variation of the belief that, if you show mercy, mercy will be shown to you. If you are patient, patience will return to you. Kind of like the whole karma thing. And so, I want a better world, not for myself necessarily, because it is what it is, right? But I want a better world for my kids. I want a better world for my grandson. I want a better world for my elderly neighbors. I want a better world for you. And I can't take everyone in off the street. I can't feed everyone that's hungry. It's not realistic. I mean, I'm a person, who's not in a very high economic bracket and trying to get by like everybody else. But what I can do, right, is I can lead with kindness. I can make a conscious effort to be empathetic towards you. I can treat you in the way that I would want to be treated, in the way that I would want my children to be treated, my mother to be treated. And hope, in the hope that will create a ripple effect in some way, big or small, probably small, that will create a better world for those I love. So, and there's a saying, and again, most religions have a variation of this. But when you see an injustice, right, change it with your hands, change it with your actions. And if you cannot, change it with your words, speak out against it. And if you're not able to do that, and of course in that is also the saying, speak the truth even if your voice shakes. But if you can't even do that, you can't do nothing proactively to make your community a better place, to be a decent human being. You can't even speak and promote humanity and decency. If all that is too much to ask, then you should hate in your heart the things that are not decent and kind and right. So, I don't know. I really, and I'm far from perfect. God knows. I've had my own moments where I have been judgmental towards people or been unkind or led with impatience. We all have. And we all will from time to time. I mean, it is what it is. And it's not in the legal system, they call it aberrant conduct. It's not our aberrant conduct. It's not our unusual human imperfection that defines us. It's our patterns of behavior. It's who and what we consistently are and do. And I really just want to challenge you as an individual, as a member of your family and your community, to really let your pattern be one of kindness and empathy. And when you see things that are not kind, that are not right, do what you can to impact change against them. If you can't do that, speak against them. Don't be quiet. The worst thing in the world isn't a predator. I don't think the worst thing in the world is a predator. I mean, it's bad, real bad. The worst thing in the world is the people that surround predators, that observe predators, that know a predator is a predator and stay silent. Mostly because they're afraid they might become the target if they don't. Don't be that. Don't be that weak, pathetic coward that creates a situation or an environment or a culture to create harm, because you're just as much of the problem in that situation. So with that, it was just a little thought. I get so tired of whenever there's an issue, particularly in my community, because I'm very active in my community as far as trying to be whatever small part of the positive change I can be. But when there's a situation, someone goes, well, that person's a felon. Well, they're a drug addict. Well, they're homeless. Well, they're crazy. Oh, they're crazy. They're annoying everybody. Just put them in prison. Lock them up. Lock them up. There's nowhere else to put them, right? And we shouldn't have to deal with it. So lock them up. Lock them up. Put them in an environment to be further abused, to be further traumatized, of gross negligence, knowing that it's almost guaranteed at some point they'll be returned to your community, by the way, far worse than they were when they got locked up. But lock them up, because for a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, you don't have to see and listen to the really pathetic state of things. For your convenience, let's further harm this person. That's not okay. And I really challenge you that when you see these types of things and you hear these types of things, at least at the very minimum, be a voice for those who cannot fairly and equally speak for themselves. That's the least we can do. The very least. So just a thought I wanted to share with you today. I'm up to, I think about 450 subscribers. So we're getting closer to the goal of 1,000. I'm going to be making more content soon. I actually have more time in my schedule freed up, which is really exciting for so many reasons. Um, if you'd like to donate to the channel, if you find my videos helpful, whatever, my Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal, I think, are in the description of every video. As is a link to the merchandise line. If you would like to get a t-shirt or a coffee cup to advertise that you're part of the FedPhoenix family, you are part of, you are proudly a part of the mission to see inmates as humans, the felons, the pre-incarcerated as human beings. If you're part of the group of people who have loved ones who are incarcerated and feel that you deserve to be seen and heard and respected as a person, and that your struggles and your suffrage are no less simply because you're incarcerated. You were incarcerated because your loved one is incarcerated. Say it loud, say it proud. Get you some merch, get you a hoodie, and let's go out here and be part of a small speck of a building block in the world we'd like to see for our children and our grandkids. So with that, just my thoughts on some things, but good day, God bless, and whatever you're going through, it is a slice of your life, and you will get through because you have to.